The bird was supposed to symbolize freedom. Instead, it was about to guide assassins to a witness in hiding. Lena Ward, a Curvy wildlife vet, discovered the truth through a single X-ray, a thin metal object beneath an injured falcon's wing, a secret tracker, a frequency that should never have existed in an animal rescue clinic. But before she could warn anyone, a diamond collar disappeared from the sanctuary. It was found in Lena's car. Mafia boss Nick Falcone fired her, humiliated her, and handed control of the bird to the very man who had planted the evidence. Now Lena has one night to prove the falcon is part of a kidnapping plot, one night to find the witness, and one night to make Nick see that the woman he called a thief may be the only person who can save a life he promised to protect. Dr. Lena Ward had treated animals that could bite through bone. She had stitched the torn wing of a bald eagle, pulled fishing line from a sea turtle's throat, and once spent 6 hours saving a bear cub trapped in a drainage pipe. But the peregrine falcon on her exam table frightened her for a different reason. It was too calm. The bird had been brought in just after dawn from the Falcone Wildlife Sanctuary, wrapped in a black transport cloth and carried by 2 men who looked more like private security than animal handlers. "Found near the north fence," one of them said. Lena lifted the cloth carefully. The falcon's left wing hung at an unnatural angle. Its feathers were wet with blood. A narrow leather collar with a silver tag rested around its neck. "Who named him?" Lena asked. "Atlas." "Who authorized the transport?" "Grant Voss." That name made Lena pause. Grant managed the sanctuary for Nick Falcone. He managed donors, staff, schedules, and anything that could become a public problem before it reached Nick's desk. Lena had learned early that Grant disliked her because she asked too many questions. "Atlas needs X-rays," she said. The guard folded his arms. "He needs to be ready by tomorrow." Lena looked at him. "Tomorrow is irrelevant if his wing is shattered." The man said nothing. A few minutes later, the X-ray appeared on the monitor. Lena expected to see bone fragments. She found them. But beneath the fractured radius was something else. A thin metal cylinder, no longer than the tip of her smallest finger, sat under the bird's skin near the wing joint. It was too precise to be shrapnel, too clean to be an accident. Lena leaned closer. "What is it?" asked Maya, her veterinary technician. "Not medical hardware. Could it be a tracking chip? Not one made for wildlife." The devices had a reinforced casing and a tiny coiled antenna. Lena had seen versions of it once before in a wildlife trafficking case. Equipment designed to transmit location data without being detected by standard animal scanners. Her stomach tightened. Outside the clinic, a black sedan pulled into the lot. Grant Voss stepped out. He wore a tailored gray coat and the kind of expression people used when they expected the room to obey them. "Dr. Ward," he said as he entered. "I hear Atlas is stable." "He is injured," Lena replied, "and someone implanted a transmitter under his wing." Grant's smile did not change. "You are sure?" "I have the X-ray." For the first time, his eyes moved toward the monitor, only for a second, but Lena saw it, fear. Then Grant turned back to her. "Nick is hosting the Sanctuary's release event tomorrow morning. Atlas is the centerpiece. He cannot be released. That is not your decision." Lena lifted the X-ray printout. "It is now." Grant stepped closer. "Be very careful," he said softly. "Sometimes people see things in a picture because they need to feel important." Then he walked out. Lena watched the black sedan disappear down the road. When she turned back to the monitor, the X-ray file was gone. Lena stared at the empty monitor. The image had not crashed. The patient file had not closed. Someone had deleted it. Maya was already tapping through the system logs. "The scan was here 2 minutes ago. Can you restore it?" "Not without the administrator account." Grant Voss had administrator access to every computer connected to the sanctuary. Lena's jaw tightened. She lifted the printed X-ray from the counter. "Then we have this." For a moment that felt like enough. It stopped feeling like enough when 3 sanctuary vehicles arrived outside the clinic. Grant entered first. Nick Falcone followed him. Nick wore a dark suit without a tie, his expression controlled in the way powerful men used control as a weapon. The room seemed smaller around him. "Grant says there's a problem with Atlas," Nick said. "There is," Lena replied. "Someone implanted a transmitter in his wing." She handed him the printout. Nick studied it. Before he could speak, Grant let out a quiet breath. "That is an old fixation pin," Grant said. "Atlas was treated after a collision last year." "No," Lena said. "It has an antenna coil. It is transmitting." Grant looked at Nick. "Dr. Ward has been under pressure. The release event is tomorrow. She may be seeing danger where there isn't any." Lena took a step closer to Nick. "Run a frequency scan. Do not let this bird leave the clinic until you do." Nick's gaze stayed on the X-ray. Then Grant's phone rang. He listened for several seconds, his face changing with practiced disbelief. "What?" Nick asked. Grant lowered the phone. "The bellwether collar is missing." Lena had heard of it. An antique diamond collar donated to the sanctuary years ago, kept in a locked display case for high-profile fundraisers. That has nothing to do with me, she said. Security footage says otherwise, Grant replied. On his phone, a grainy video showed Lena entering the sanctuary's administrative wing the previous afternoon. Her coat, her hair, her silhouette. But Lena had spent that afternoon treating an injured fox at a school 2 towns away. I was never there. Grant gave the phone to Nick. The collar was found in Dr. Ward's car 20 minutes ago. The word struck harder than a slap. No, it was in the spare tire compartment, Grant said. Lena looked at Maya, then back at Nick. He planted it. Nick's eyes lifted to hers. You are accusing my sanctuary manager of planting evidence, he said. I am accusing the man who erased my X-ray of trying to silence me. Grant's expression remained calm. I did not erase anything. Nick folded the printout once carefully. Until I know what happened, you are suspended from this case. Lena felt the room tilt. Nick, that bird is carrying a live transmitter. And right now, he said quietly, I have footage, stolen property, and an employee accusing everyone else. His words were not cruel. That made them worse. Atlas shifted in his enclosure, his injured wing trembling. As Nick turned toward the door, Lena caught a faint electronic pulse from the portable scanner on the counter. One brief spike, then another. A coded transmission. The device under Atlas's broken wing was alive, and it was sending its signal somewhere nearby. Lena waited until Nick's cars disappeared from the clinic lot. Then she locked the front door. Maya stood beside the counter, pale and furious. What do we do? We find out where that signal is going. Lena connected the portable scanner to her laptop. The transmitter beneath Atlas's wing pulsed every 40 seconds, brief, encrypted bursts that vanished before ordinary wildlife equipment could register them. But Lena had worked a trafficking case 2 years earlier. She still had an old decoder programs saved on an external drive, the screen filled with broken characters. Then a location key appeared. Maya leaned closer. Is that a GPS coordinate? No, Lena's voice dropped. It is a relay code. A second burst came through. This time the system translated part of it. Falcone Escort Level 3 Bell. Lena stopped breathing. Bell. Noah Bell. Everyone in the city knew Noah's name only as a rumor. A former bookkeeper who had survived an attack, vanished under Nick Falcone's protection, and supposedly held records capable of destroying half the men who paid for violence in the city. No one knew where he was hidden, until now. Atlas was not simply carrying a tracker. He was carrying a beacon designed to communicate with the security frequency protecting Noah Bell. Lena looked toward the Falcon's enclosure. Tomorrow's release event, she whispered. The sanctuary sat on a ridge above the river. If Atlas was released, the beacon could lock onto the escort signal as Noah was moved through the area. Whoever planted it would not need to know the witness's location. They only needed the bird to fly. Maya grabbed her phone. We call Nick. Lena did. Once. Twice. The third call went straight to voicemail. She sent a photograph of the X-ray printout and the decoded screen. Grant Voss answered from Nick's phone. Dr. Ward, he said smoothly. You were told not to interfere. Put Nick on. He is occupied. Atlas is being used to locate Noah Bell. Silence met her. Then Grant said, you should stop saying that name. Lena's fingers tightened around the phone. You knew, she said. You are making a difficult situation worse for yourself. You planted the collar. You erased the scan, and you are going to get a man killed. Grant exhaled, almost bored. The police are reviewing the theft. I would advise you not to leave town. The call ended. For several seconds, Lena stood perfectly still. Then she opened the security program again. The video showing her at the sanctuary had been sent from an internal camera. Grant had edited it, but he had made one mistake. The clip showed a clock on the wall. Lena magnified the image until the numbers blurred. 4:12 p.m. At 4:12, she had been standing in front of 20 children at Eastwood Elementary, explaining why a wounded fox could not be touched. The school had cameras, teachers, parents, an alibi. Not enough to prove Grant framed her, but enough to prove he lied. Maya looked at the screen. What happens if he moves Atlas tonight? Lena checked the sanctuary schedule Grant had sent earlier. A private donor rehearsal had been added at 9 o'clock. Atlas would be transferred to the outdoor aviary before morning. He will test the beacon, Lena said, and when it connects to Noah's protection detail, someone will be waiting. A vehicle pulled into the lot. Not a police car. A black sanctuary van. 2 guards stepped out. They carried a transport crate. Dr. Ward, one called through the glass. Mr. Falcone ordered us to collect Atlas. Lena looked at the wounded bird, then at the scanner where another encrypted burst flashed across the screen. The signal had changed. It was no longer searching. It had found something. Lena did not hand Atlas over. She stood between the enclosure and the 2 guards, one palm braced against the metal door. You can tell Mr. Falcone that the bird is medically unfit for transport. The older guard glanced at the scanner. We have an order, and I have a veterinary license, Lena said. His wing is unstable, move him carelessly, and you could drive that device deeper into the joint. That was true. It was also the only argument that gave her 3 more minutes. Maya slipped into the imaging room behind her. Lena heard cabinet doors open, then the soft click of an external drive connecting to a computer. The younger guard stepped forward. Doctor? 30 seconds. He did not move. The scanner pulsed again. Lena watched a string of numbers appear, then copied them onto the back of a prescription pad. A relay time, a channel designation. The transmission was now occurring every 20 seconds. Too fast. Someone on the other end was actively searching for the signal. Maya returned with her coat half on and a small metal case in her hand. I found the scanner's local cache, she said under her breath. The original image is still there. The patient file was deleted from the network, but the machine keeps raw captures. Relief moved through Lena so sharply it almost hurt. Did you save it? 3 copies. The guards exchanged a look, then one of their radios crackled. Transport the bird. Now. Lena knew Grant's voice even through static. She stepped aside before the guards could force the issue. Atlas was lifted into the transport crate, his dark eyes fixed on her until the van doors closed. Maya grabbed Lena's arm. What now? We go to the sanctuary. The Falcone Wildlife Sanctuary had transformed itself for the next morning's release event. White tents stood along the ridge. Donor banners fluttered beside the aviaries. Caterers carried trays through the main lodge while security teams checked cameras and entry points. It looked like a celebration. Lena saw a trap. Nick stood near the stage platform with Grant and a group of donors. The instant he noticed Lena crossing the lawn, his face hardened. Grant spoke first. You were told to stay away. I came to stop someone from murdering Noah Bell. Several donors went still. Nick walked toward her, his voice low. You will not say that name here. You need to hear me. I heard you at the clinic. No, you heard Grant. Lena held out the metal case. The X-ray was deleted from the network using an administrator account, but the machine preserved the original file. It shows a transmitter beneath Atlas's wing. I decoded its relay code. It is tied to the protected escort channel assigned to Noah Bell. Nick's expression did not shift. Grant took the case before she could stop him. He opened it, studied the screen on Maya's tablet, then gave a small laugh. You expect Nick to risk a public event based on a damaged image and an accusation from a woman under investigation for theft? Lena stared at him. You know it is real, do I? Nick looked around. Staff members had stopped working. Donors were watching. His people were waiting for direction. The humiliation came quietly. That was its cruelty. Lena, he said, leave the property. Her name and his voice nearly broke something inside her. She had expected suspicion. She had not expected him to choose Grant in front of everyone after seeing the evidence himself. If Atlas is released, she said, Noah will die. Nick's eyes turned cold. Escort Dr. Ward out. 2 security officers approached. Maya stepped forward. The school can verify Lena's alibi for the footage. She was speaking to children at 412 yesterday. Grant's smile vanished for half a second. Lena saw it, so did Nick, but he still gave no order to stop. The guards guided Lena toward the gate, then the sanctuary's internal alarm sounded. Once, twice. A sharp red light flashed above the main aviary. A guard shouted from the far path, Mr. Falcone, Atlas's crate is empty. Grant turned toward the aviary. Too quickly, and Lena understood. Atlas had never been meant to wait for tomorrow morning. The bird had already been released. The alarm echoed across the ridge. Nick moved first. Lock down every gate, he ordered. No vehicle leaves this property. His security team scattered. Grant turned sharply toward the aviary. The bird is injured. It cannot have gone far. Lena watched him. Not the words, the timing. He knew Atlas was gone before the guard had finished speaking. You said he was in the crate, she said. Grant faced her. I was told he was. No, Lena replied. You said the word bird before anyone identified what escaped. For the first time, Nick looked directly at Grant. A small silence opened between them. Then Maya's phone rang. She answered, listened, and held it toward Lena. Eastwood Elementary. The principal confirmed it. You were there at 412 yesterday. They sent the lobby video. Maya pressed play. The screen showed Lena beside a cardboard display of local wildlife surrounded by children. A digital timestamp glowed in the corner, 4:12 p.m. The exact minute Grant's footage claimed Lena had entered the sanctuary administration building. Nick took the phone. His jaw hardened as he watched it. Grant reached for an explanation. Someone could have altered the school recording. Lena looked at him. You are the only person here who keeps suggesting every piece of evidence is fake. A radio crackled at Nick's shoulder. Mr. Falcone, we located the missing transport crate by the northern access road. No bird. There's a small antenna mounted underneath it. Nick's gaze snapped to Lena. The transmitter, she said. It was never meant to guide Atlas alone. It used the bird's movement to activate an external relay. Grant's calm finally slipped. You are letting a disgraced employee turn this place upside down over a damaged animal. Nick turned on him. Enough. The word cut through the courtyard. Nobody moved. Nick picked up Lena's scanner from the table where Maya had set it down. He studied the live signal display, then held it out to Lena. What does it tell you? She forced herself to focus. The signal no longer pulsed in short search bursts. It held a steady connection to a fixed point northeast of the sanctuary. She entered the relay code into her decoder. A map appeared. A red line marked the route. It led away from the ridge through a wooded service road and toward a small river house owned by one of Falcone's shell companies. Lena's stomach dropped. That is not Noah's safe house, Nick said. It is now, she answered. Or someone wants you to think it is. Nick reached for his radio. Move Noah Bell immediately. Use the second protocol. No phones, no GPS. Grant spoke too quickly. The second protocol uses the East Bridge. Everyone turned toward him. He went still. Nick's voice became dangerously quiet. Only 3 people know that route. Grant swallowed. I managed the sanctuary schedules. You heard nothing, Nick said. Lena saw the truth settle into him at last. Not all of it, not enough to undo what he had done to her. But enough. The security chief approached, carrying a velvet pouch. Sir, we found this near the North Access Road. Inside was the bellwether collar. Its diamonds caught the afternoon light. A tiny smear of black grease marked the clasp. Lena recognized it immediately. The same grease used on the sanctuary transport crate hinges. Grant had planted the collar in her car, then moved it again when the story began to collapse. Nick looked from the pouch to Grant. Grant backed away 1 step, then another. His hand slid inside his coat. Nick's guards drew closer, but Lena raised her voice. Do not let him call anyone. Grant froze. The portable scanner emitted a sudden shrill tone. A new transmission appeared on the screen. Track it moving. Nick stared at the words. Then he looked at Lena. I was wrong, he said. There was no excuse in his voice. No attempt to soften it. Only the truth. Lena nodded toward the map. Then stop apologizing and help me save Noah. Nick gave the order. Within seconds, black vehicles tore down the sanctuary road. Lena climbed into the lead SUV beside him, Atlas's signal flashing on the scanner between them. Ahead, the river road disappeared into the trees, and somewhere beyond those trees, Noah Bell was already being hunted. The SUV tore down the river road without sirens. Nick had ordered every vehicle in the convoy to kill its navigation system. Phones went into signal-blocking bags. Radios switched to a closed channel used only by the 3 people now inside the lead vehicle. Lena sat in the back seat with the scanner balanced on her knees. Each pulse from Atlas's transmitter was a tiny needle of light on the map. He is flying low, she said. Nick glanced over his shoulder. You can tell that? The signal is irregular. Trees, power lines, terrain. A bird flying high would transmit cleanly. His driver slowed near a fork in the road. The scanner flashed. Lena pointed left. There, the road narrowed into forest. Nick's security chief, Elias, spoke through the radio. Noah's team has changed vehicles. They are proceeding under the second protocol. The East Bridge, Lena said. Nick's gaze met hers in the rearview mirror. Yes, then do not send them across it, Elias answered before Nick could. That route is cleared. No route is cleared if Grant knew it. The SUV went silent. Lena enlarged the relay data. The transmitter beneath Atlas's wing was doing more than sending a location. It was copying short encrypted handshakes from nearby protected devices, then passing those handshakes to another receiver. It had learned the security pattern. It is not tracking Noah's exact location, she said. It is mapping the escorts around him. The people who planted it know which car is real by the way your protection detail communicates. Nick absorbed that without blinking. What do we do, he asked. The question landed differently than any apology could have. Not because he had surrendered control, because he had finally trusted what she knew. Lena studied the map again. Give them what they expect. Elias swore softly. A decoy. 2 decoys, Lena said. One vehicle follows the East Bridge route exactly as Grant described it. Make its communication pattern match Noah's detail. The second leaves from the old service dock with Noah inside. No radios, no phones. 1 driver, 1 medic, and a paper map. Nick considered it for only a second. Do it. Elias began issuing orders. Lena shook her head. Not over the closed channel. Everyone looked at her. If the transmitter can read your handshakes, it may be close enough to catch this channel too. Use runners. Face to face. Nick gave a sharp nod. Elias, pull over. At the next turnout, guards fanned through the trees to deliver instructions in person. No digital trail, no spoken details over radio. For the first time since the clinic, Lena allowed herself one full breath. Nick stepped beside her while the others worked. "The collar," he said. "My people searched your car. You let them." "I did." She looked at him. His expression held no defense. "I trusted a man because he was useful," Nick continued. "And I treated you like you had to prove your honesty before I owed you basic respect." Lena looked back at the forest. "You did not just doubt me. You gave Grant time." "I know." The simplicity of the answer stopped her. A sudden scream cut through the trees. Atlas. The falcon burst from the branches above them, one wing dragging badly. He circled once, then crashed into the grass near the turnout. Lena ran to him. The bird's chest rose too fast. Blood darkened the feathers along his fractured wing. "Easy," she whispered. The scanner shrieked. The signal strength was overwhelming. "It is here," Nick said. Lena looked beneath the wing. The transmitter's casing had shifted. A red indicator glowed through the torn skin. "It is still broadcasting," she said, "and it is pointing toward the bridge." Nick's security chief returned at a run. "Decoy convoy is in position." Lena looked at the injured falcon, then at the bridge road beyond the trees. "Wait," she said. "This is not a tracker anymore." Nick crouched beside her. "What is it?" "A trigger." At that exact moment, the decoy convoy began to move, and somewhere ahead, hidden eyes were waiting for it. Lena stared at the red indicator beneath Atlas's wing. "It is waiting for the convoy to cross a fixed point," she said. Nick's security chief looked toward the bridge road. "A trigger for what?" "The signal code is being sent in pairs," Lena replied. "First pulse confirms the escort pattern. Second pulse confirms movement. When both are received, whoever is waiting knows the target is on the bridge." Nick understood immediately. "Stop the decoy." "No," Lena said. "Not yet." His eyes narrowed. "If it stops before the bridge, Grant's people will know we found the trap. Let it approach the crossing, but move Noah's real vehicle farther downriver now, quietly." Elias nodded and ran to deliver the message in person. Lena carefully covered Atlas with her coat to shield the transmitter from the open sky. The signal weakened under the fabric but did not die. "There," she said, watching the scanner. "It is communicating with a receiver above the bridge." Nick looked up. A weather camera sat on the old steel support tower. Not a camera, a relay. Minutes later, the decoy convoy came into view on the distant road. 3 dark vehicles moved in formation toward the bridge. Every attacker watching would see exactly what Grant had promised them. Then Lena's scanner flashed. Secondary arming. Her pulse leapt. "There is another device," she said. The X-ray showed a second metal shadow behind the transmitter casing. "I thought it was part of the antenna." Nick dropped beside her. "What is it?" "A trigger tag. It activates when the beacon locks onto the right vehicle pattern." She looked toward the bridge. "If the convoy crosses, it may not just identify Noah. It may tell someone to attack." Nick's voice became ice. "Elias." The security chief responded from the roadside below. "The decoy is 50 yards from the bridge." "Turn it around," Nick ordered. Lena grabbed his arm, not backward. "Forward, off the bridge approach. Make them take the emergency turn toward the empty quarry road." Nick listened. The decoy convoy veered at the final intersection. For one long second, nothing happened. Then a dark pickup accelerated from beneath the bridge and raced after the decoys. Another vehicle emerged from the trees behind it. Neither had been visible a moment earlier. Elias's team closed the road ahead. State investigators, alerted by Nick through a secured emergency line, blocked the rear route. The vehicles were trapped before they reached the quarry. No bullets, no dramatic chase. Just doors opening, hands raised, and the slow collapse of a plan built on secrecy. Lena let out the breath she had been holding. "Noah?" Nick asked. A runner arrived from the riverside path. "Safe," he said. "Boat transfer completed. He is already beyond the county line." Nick closed his eyes for half a second. Then he looked at Lena. The first light of morning touched the ridge as they returned to the sanctuary. The public release event had been delayed, but donors, press, staff, and animal rescue partners were already gathered beneath the white tents. Grant Voss stood near the stage, flanked by 2 investigators. He had not escaped. He had made one final mistake instead. His phone records showed repeated contact with the men arrested near the bridge. The sanctuary server preserved his administrator login, deleting Lena's X-ray. The transport crate camera had captured him removing Atlas before the alarm, and the original scan showed the serial number inside the implanted transmitter. All of it was displayed on a large monitor before the crowd. Nick stepped onto the stage. Lena stood several feet away, Atlas secure in a recovery crate beside her. "Yesterday," Nick said, his voice carrying across the silent lawn, "I accused Dr. Lena Ward of theft before the evidence had been tested. I suspended her. I publicly treated her warning as a problem instead of protecting the person who brought it to me." No one moved. She was right. Her X-ray exposed a criminal operation that endangered a protected witness and used an injured animal as a weapon. Grant stared at the ground. Nick turned toward Lena. "There is no private apology that fixes a public wrong," he said. "So I am making this public." The investigators led Grant away. Lena looked down at Atlas. The Falcon's wing was still broken, but Noah Bell was alive. And because one woman refused to be silenced, the sky above the sanctuary no longer belonged to men like Grant Voss. 3 weeks later, Atlas stood beneath a bright spring sky. His wing had healed cleanly. The transmitter was gone. So was the narrow leather collar that had turned an injured animal into a tool for men who believed every living thing could be owned. Lena waited at the edge of the release field, one hand resting on the open carrier door. Beyond the grass stood reporters, rescue workers, sanctuary staff, and representatives from the State Wildlife Agency. The sanctuary had reopened under an independent board. Grant Voss faced criminal charges for conspiracy, evidence tampering, animal cruelty, and assisting an attempted attack on a protected witness. The people arrested at the bridge had provided statements, records, and messages that connected every part of the plan. Lena's name had been cleared, not quietly, not with a private payment and an erased headline. Nick Falcone had insisted that the correction be as public as the accusation. He stood at the podium, but he did not look like the untouchable man who had first walked into her clinic. He looked tired, more honest because of it. "Today," he told the crowd, "the Falcone Wildlife Sanctuary becomes the Ward Wildlife Recovery Center." Applause rose across the field. Lena blinked. Nick continued, "The center will be managed by an independent board. Dr. Lena Ward will have full authority over medical policy if she chooses to accept the role. A permanent fund has also been established for injured raptors, anti-trafficking investigations, and free wildlife care programs for local schools." He paused. "The fund is not an apology that makes the past disappear. It is a commitment to change what comes next." That mattered, because Nick had learned what Lena already knew. Power was not proven by how quickly someone could command a room. It was proven by what they did after they had used that power wrongly. Later, when the cameras had moved away, Nick found her beside Atlas's carrier. "You do not have to say yes," he said. "To the job? To any of it." Lena studied him. The old Nick would have offered a title, a building, a promise. He would have expected the size of the gesture to settle the wound. This Nick had waited 3 weeks for her to decide without pressure. "I will take the medical director role," she said, "with the board agreement exactly as written." A small smile touched his face. "It is. And I will not report to you. You will not." She opened the carrier door. Atlas stepped out, paused in the grass, then lifted into the air. For a second his repaired wing dipped, then it caught the wind. He rose above the ridge, strong and free, circling once over the center that had nearly failed him. Nick watched beside her. "Dinner?" he asked after a while. "Somewhere with no donors, no guards, and no emergency radios." Lena considered him. Then she smiled. "Dinner," she said. 1 hour, and you are not choosing the restaurant. I would not dare." Above them, Atlas became a dark shape against the open sky, and for the first time, Lena did not feel like she had to fight alone to be believed.